All right, so to review today before moving on, we're going to try to write equations, not just find the slope or the rate or whatever. We're going to write the whole equations from a graph, from ordered pairs, and from a table, okay? So starting from a graph, who remembers the two things, actually from all of these, that we need to write every equation so far in this class? What are the two things? Connor, go ahead.
Y2 minus y1, x2 minus x.
Which is called the what? That's the right equation. What? The rate or the slope. Yes. Okay. So the rate or the slope, and we're going to use both words, is the equation. Now, from a graph, we actually don't have to use that. We can use rise over run on a graph. Okay, so we do need a rate and a slope for every single equation we've done so far. But on a graph, the easiest way really is to use rise over run. But in order to use rise over run, remember you need 2 points. So they're not on there. You have to figure out where they're going to be. So where did I tell you to look? Go, Ashanti. Yeah, so if you go down, right, why do I not want like a middle point like this?
Because it's not an exact number.
Yeah, you want something on an exact location. So you want to follow the graph until it's like on a corner. It's on all 4 corners like that. All right, let me see if I can zoom that a little bit so that people can see it better if they're watching. Okay, then if we keep going, here's the next one, right? And so if we start furthest to the left, what would be, raise your hand, don't yell it out, what's my rise and what's my run? Kamaria, go. Good. What's the run? 2. The rise is -1 because you're going down 1 and then the run is right 2. Okay, so that's my rate and my slope. Okay, what's the second thing we need for every equation we've done so far? We need a slope. What else do we need? The y-intercept. So in this chapter, though, they call it initial value, but we're going to write both just so that we remember, which is also the y-intercept. And honestly, on a graph, it's a confusing thing when they call it initial value because you want it to be way over here. In your mind, you're like, initial means first, and so you want it to be at the beginning of the graph. Well, it's not really that, but when we call it y-intercept, this is the y line, right, running up and down. Intercept means where does it intercept the y line? So at what number would that be? Liz Mari, what is it? At 3, right here, that dot is at the location of 3. That's the information we need. And now the equation, remember, equations that we've done so far are in this format. Y equals mx plus b, where m was our slope and b was our y-intercept. So using this information, what is the final equation really that we were looking for? Go ahead, Liz Mari, go. Start with y equals, yep, but -1/2. Yep. Perfect. This is the equation that we would be looking for.
That's easy.
It is. We learned it, right? So tomorrow we're going to do the story problems, and this will be attached to an actual rate of something, like someone's miles per hour and like where they're starting their journey or something like that, okay? Well, you know what I mean. Not these numbers don't work. Okay, let's do the next one. So this is from a graph. This is how we do it from a graph. From ordered pairs was a little more challenging, okay? So this one, we still have to find the exact same stuff. We still have to find the rate and the slope, rate or the slope, I should say, and we still have to find the initial value. Okay, now this rate or slope, you cannot use rise over run because there's no graph, right? You have to use Connor's formula that he gave in the last one, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And you have to remember how to label it. So what are the labels that go on your two ordered pairs? Give them to me in the correct order here. What do I put above the 3 and the 4 and the 0 and the -2? Mayana, go ahead. The first one is x1. Yep. And then what? Yep. Perfect. So x1, y1, x2, y2, and then the formula, just realize it's backwards from that. So like we're going to start by subtracting -2 minus 4. And the bottom would be 0 minus 3. And then we're going to make sure we want to double check using our calculators to make sure we have the correct numerator and denominator here. Okay, so give me the answers when you type in -2 minus 4 on the top and 0 minus 3 on the bottom. Gabby, go. Perfect. And then what was the last thing I told you should check? Go, Kathy. Does it divide? Yep. And does it? What's the answer? 2. So a lot of times that will divide nicely and give you 2 or some sort of integer, okay? We still have to find initial value for these as well. This we did different, okay? So initial value, otherwise known as y-intercept, for these, we used y equals mx plus b. And to give you a little hint here, we changed y and m and x to numbers. Where did I get them? Ashanti, go. Pair, yep. Okay, so which pair do you want me to choose? The first one or the second? Okay, so we're going to choose this one, 3 and 4. So under x, I'm going to put 3. Under y, I'm going to put 4. Where does m come from? So somebody's whispering it. The rate or the slope, yeah. So 2 right here, don't forget, that's really our m. So that's where we're going to put here. Now, this doesn't make 23, does it? What do? We put a multiply there, yep, and we're going to multiply it. So put down your equal sign, put a multiplication in between the 2 and the 3, add your plus b, and then, yeah, our first step after this, we have to multiply those numbers, right? 2 times 3 gives us 6. Bring down equals 4 plus and b. Okay, there's one more step to solving what b is. Do you remember?
Math.
It is math, Liz Murray. What is it? It's not divide, but you're like on the right track. What? Yes, okay. So we want to get b alone, right? So we want to get rid of that 6. We want to undo it. So the opposite of 6 this time would be -6 or -6. If it was negative, we would add it. What? It's not the recording. It's like my cable here. But I can't help it. So hopefully I can just do it. Okay, so I do that and I do this, right? I have to also do it on the 4. That gives us our final answer. So b equals 4 minus 6, which is -2. So this was one of the hardest questions because this is all the work. What's our final equation now? From that work, the whole idea was to write the equation. What is the equation in the end? Aisha, go ahead.
Y equals 2x plus -2.
Yep. And can I write it like this?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And so plus -2 is still correct. Normally on like an NWEA or a PSAT, right? They're going to take that plus negative and just make it minus. They want to make it as short as possible. Okay, this one I think is the most challenging because it takes the most work, right? This part takes work. However, the graph and the table are the easier ones. So the graph, we did the same thing up here. Here's a table now. We need the same information. So let's start with our rate or our slope. Okay, now, from a table, can I use rise over run?
No.
Can I use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So the idea is for you guys to be able to distinguish between like, okay, what do I have? I know I need this. What do I use? Okay, so in this case, yes, we're back to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, what do I subtract on top and bottom? Ashanti, go ahead.
On top is 4 minus 1.
Yep.
And on bottom is -2 minus 3.
Perfect. Okay, so she did this exactly correct. Now this way, so up here, look, it's going side to side because it's listed side to side. This is listed up and down. So this is really x1, x2. This is y1 and y2. It's just listed up and down in this table rather than being listed side to side. That's all the difference is. So if you do this out correctly, you should get 3 over -2 minus -4 is like -2 plus 4. So it's going to give you 2 here. Does that divide? It gives you 1.5, doesn't it? So a lot of times we just leave it alone. Now, as we move forward in this lesson, sometimes the rates we want to keep it we'll want it to be a decimal, as long as we don't have to graph it. Okay. Now we got to find, same thing again, we got to find initial value or y-intercept. Again, initial value on using that term for a table can be confusing because you're like, oh, initial means first. So then you're like, oh, it's this first value of 1. And that's not it, actually. Does anyone remember how to find the initial value on a table? Crystal, what do I do? That's right. We look for the 0 on the x. We want to look for 0 here. All right, I found it. So what's the initial value then?
0.
7.
Oh.
Okay, so our initial value here is 7. This, we look for that 0, but this is really my answer here of 7. It's the y-intercept, right? So the answer is on the y. Okay, good. Who can give me the final answer or the equation for this time? Aisha, go ahead.
Y equals 3 over 2x plus 7.
Perfect. Good. Okay, so that's all we're going to review today because tomorrow we're going to tie it into story problems. All right, that's it for video today. The homework is going to be this paper that goes with it, so we'll work on that together. But it looks like this for people who are absent today.